So today's Shiur is, we are in the middle of a 3 weeks period. We just completed Parshas Pinchas. We're in the week of Matos Maseh. It's a double Parsha. So we're really coming to the conclusion of the book of Bamidbar. So this is really a siyum on Sefer Bamidbar this week. Because Parshas Dvarim, by definition, always is the Shabbos prior to Tisha B'Av. And we have to understand that a little bit. Like why Chazal insisted that the book of Bamidbar be completed prior to entering the period of the end of the 9-day period, and so that we should already be into Sefer Dvarim and Va'eschanan, which is my Akivas Bar Mitzvah Parsha, Kanahara in 2 years, is Shabbos Nachamu. That's question number one. And we have to go back and take a look at both Parshas Pinchas and Matos Maseh to understand what's really going on. Now, what is the conclusion of Sefer Bamidbar all about? So I'm going to pose a series of questions, okay? Let's go back to the beginning of Parshas Pinchas. We know this really, who's the major villain at the end, both in last week's Parsha, Pinchas, but he's also finds his fate in this week's Parsha, otherwise known as Bilam. The death of Bilam is recorded in this week's Parsha. And what was he doing with the Midianites that caused him, right? Hashem gave a command, Schwartz and Midyanim. He gave a mitzvah to the Roshei Matos, two things. They learned about Nidarim, right? That a man or a husband has a right to reduce the religious vows that his wife takes that are stringencies which will impinge their happiness, their natural flow of life. She takes a vow not to bathe, not to eat meat, not to drink wine, not a Nazirus, but just a lifetime vow. Then they have the option to reduce it. So what does neder have to do with anything? It seems to be a non sequitur. And then we plunge into the war against the Midyanim. What was the war about the Midyanim about? Well, to take revenge for what they did to Klal Yisrael. Well, what did they do to Klal Yisrael? What did they really do to Klal Yisrael? Correct, Kozbi Bas Tzur. And then what was the result? So what harm did they cause to the Jewish people? What actual harm?
Reduced the Kedusha.
That's a good question, whether there was a lasting problem, or it was a loss of how many people? 24,000 men. And the question is, Bilam apparently took credit for the killing of the 24,000. Who were those 24,000 Jews? The people that died in the Magefa. They died not by human hands, but they died in a plague. So it's kind of funny. Hashem is saying, take revenge for what I did. Think about that. Hashem killed them. No one else killed them. It wasn't the Midyanim that actually killed them. They caused their death. And not even, we have a principle in the idea of shliach ein shliach ledvar aveira. When somebody tells you, go burn this guy's house down, and he doesn't burn the house down, who's responsible? The guy who burnt it down or the guy who told him to burn it down? The guy who burned it down. Yeah, because we say, divrei harav, divrei hatalmud, mishomim. Who told you to do it? Oh, he told me to do it. It's the same thing. The Nazis used this in Nuremberg, and in all their trials, they said, nicht schuldig, we're not responsible. We're just following orders. Wait, who told you to listen to the orders? So 1 second, how come the Bnei Midyan, 24,000 of them are dying because of the plague that Hashem did for the reduction of the Kedusha, the Chilul Hashem? They are only indirectly responsible. Who's really responsible? Well, you could say Bilam, but Bilam was only the one who told him to do it. So why is even Bilam punished for that? And why was he taking schar, among other things? So the first curiosity is this. Number one, what does neder have to do with anything? Number two, what was this war against Midian all about? Hashem made a plague on people who did Averos. It's like I say, it's an internal Israeli matter. Nobody's business. Hashem punished Klal Yisrael for their Averos, and you're going to go kill Midian over it? So it's a little bit difficult. Now let's go further. I'm going to go back now to Parshas Pinchas, which is where this all started. A couple of questions. Now just follow me closely. I'm giving you a lot of information. Okay, you ready? Everybody knows. Let's just go over the storyline. Number one, the Jews start to sin with whom? Pasuk says, with the daughters of Midian or the daughters of Moab?
The Moab, only one Midian.
It was only one Midianite, or the one that we singled out. So now comes another question. If it was, which women were there? Which women were there? Were they the daughters of Moab? No, can't be. Or was it that the Moabite women came and only one Midianite came? So then what are you going killing Midian for? Go kill Moab. Because I'll ask this question. Why was Moab not punished?
Moab was not punished because they really feared
Oh, very good. Chazal said they had a good reason, but Midian was just pure hatred. That's one approach.
Moab just didn't want them to cause their territory,
They're saying it was just about a military thing. Or there's another answer Chazal offer, which is, yeah, that's right, because Rus is going to emanate from there. 1 second. Okay, Rus is going to emanate from there. But does that mean that they are free from what they've done? What kind of thing is that? It doesn't make so much sense. Okay. So the first question we have is a confusion between who's the villain here? Is it Midian? Is it Moab? Why is Midian held responsible? Why is Bilam punished if he was only a Eitzah Geber? He only gave an Eitzah. And we say, Divrei Rav, Divrei Tam Misham, who told him to. Okay, that's question number one. Question number two is what happened next. Hashem commanded Moshe Rabbeinu to bring to judgment those that sinned in Baal Peor. Does anybody remember what the command was? So let's take a look. This is that right away at the end of Parshas Balak. It says, as we said, Vayeshev Yisrael b'shitim vayachel ha'am liznos es benos Moab. Moab and not Midian. Question. Vatikrena lahem lezivchei Eloheim vayochal ha'am vayishtachavu le'Eloheim. So clearly, what was their crime? Immorality or avodah zarah? Which was the crime? Avodah zarah, right? Vayitzamed Yisrael leval Peor. They did avodah zarah to Baal Peor. Now Baal Peor is the most heinous of avodah zarahs. You know why? Because the way it was worshipped was that a person, I'd put it this way, acted like a little baby. No control over their bowels, right? But it doesn't say that. It says, Vayishtachavu la'Eloheihem. Interesting. It doesn't say that they did this act of defecating in front of Baal Peor, but they did bow down to it. That's strange. Now, we know the Mishnah of Avodah Zarah says that there's 5 classic ways of performing Avodah Zarah. What are they? Zvicha, oived, you do whatever normally is done, or you bring a korban. Zvicha, you shecht it. Haktara, you bring parts of it onto the mizbeach, the innards, for example, right? Nisuch, you pour wine, libations, and mishtachava are bowing down. Now, those are standard, but over here, it was specifically hishtachava and not oved, because the oved means to do it the way everybody else does. So it's interesting to note that the Torah points out that they did hishtachava, which is a penalty, which is one of the crimes, but not the typical one. And it says, Vayitzamed Yisrael leBaal Peor. They got very connected there. Vayichar af Adonai b'Yisrael. And Hashem was very angry. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe kach es kol roshei ha'am. Take the shoftim, v'hoka osam. Not the shoftim. Rashi says, those that did the Avera with Baal Peor, and hang them up high. Neged shemesh. It singles out the sun. Okay? Now, hanging is not one of the four misos bezdin, which we know are what? Skila, sreifa, hereg, and chenek. Stoning, burning, which means not burning the body, but incinerating a person's inside with molten lead, causing molten lead to be poured down their esophagus. Right? Not fun. But it's better than being burnt alive, actually. Skila, sreifa, at least the body's intact. Think about it. Skila, sreifa, hereg, which is cutting a person's head off. Right? My friend told me last night that the guillotine that was innovated by the French was considered a humane death because it wasn't painful. Chazal speak about that, always brur lo misa yafeh. You kill a person, you still love them. Got to give them a misa that's not terribly painful. So hereg is a quick death. Okay?
And that's the time of some before they gave the other.
They gave them, many things were done to make it. Even the last one, which is chenek, wasn't that you hung them. It meant that you placed them deep into the mud, and you put a soft handkerchief around a hard rope, and you put it around his neck, and they pulled. Notice a soft handkerchief to make them more comfortable. Anyway, but hanging is not one. But the halacha is kol haniskalim nitlin. Skila, which is given to the worst offenders, including Oved Avodah Zarah, right? Megadef, Mecharev, cursing God, right? Cursing one's parents, okay? Among those other offenses that you get skila for, you hang them after their death. What? Chilul Shabbos, yes. Yeah. Hamachalas Shabbos, Oved Avodah Zarah, Oved, Yudoni, all these various forms of Avodah Zarah. Okay, so what you have is a hanging, not so much to kill them, but to show everyone the demonstration that there was a punishment for this crime. And if you remember, just this week, there was a story about the watch of Eli Cohen, the master spy of Israel and Syria. But they recovered his watch.
They bought it. They had to pay the woman who had it.
Yeah, they bought it off. Why did they wait so long? They're waiting for a better price. That was 1960 what? 5. Eli Cohen was a master spy. But he had a watch that was like with Islamic, I think, letters. And it was part of his disguise. And
Did
he
they
rose
get his
to.
body back?
I don't believe so. It was a big deal. It was a big deal this week. It was considered a very big deal. Like something of him was recovered, not his watch, or something, not him, but I don't know the details. But the image that I always remember regarding that tragic episode was him hanging in a sack with declarations written on it in Arabic, like this is what should be done to a traitor. Yeah? Hanging, not because they hanged him, but it was a demonstration. So Moshe was told by Hashem, take these people, they get skila. No, they deserve skila. They deserve the equivalent of skila. But how are we going to execute it is different than usual. And that's also a question. It says, Hirgu ish anashav. This is a Gemara in Yerushalmi in Sanhedrin. Kol echad ve'echad midayanei Yisrael hayahoreg shnayim. Every one of the 88,000. 88,000. Right.
What happened?
80,000 and 8,000. Something is 87,000. Different girsos here. Because if you take the Sarei Alafim, plus the Sarei Meos, plus the Sarei Chamishim, plus the Sarei Asarot, all the different judicial levels, and add them all up, that's what you get. How do you figure? Because Sari Alafim, there were 600,000, so there's only 60 of them. But Sari Asaros, Sari Emeos, is already 60,000, right? Excuse me, 6,000, right? 6,000? Right. And then so the total number, as you go down to the Sari Meos, etc., and Sari Asaros is going to get to a total of 87,000. It's a little bit complicated how they came up with the number exactly, but trust Chazal, that's the number. How many, let's assume 88,000. How many people? Each one kills 2 that are under their jurisdiction. How many people go? How many people are destined to die? 88,000 times 2, 176,000. That's more than 25% of Klal Yisrael's adult males between the ages of 20 and 50. If Bilam caused that much damage, why did Chazal say he only came to collect the reward for the 24,000 people that were killed in a plague? Now we know that 24,000 were killed in a plague, a fire or whatever it was came down from Hashem and killed them. What happened to this? What happened to the judicial process of killing 2 people for each of the 88,000? What happened to it? Where are they? Why isn't it spoken about? Didn't it happen or did it not happen? Okay, so that's it. We only find 24,000. Bilam only got money for 24,000 people that he was responsible for killing. He should have gotten a much bigger paycheck. Boy, if I were Bilam's agent, I would have said we got ripped off. Right? Go back, 24,000. And then, the final question of all this jigsaw puzzle. Steps in who to save the day? Zimri ben Salu, otherwise known as Shlumiel ben Suri Shaddai, the Nasi of Shevet Shimon. Right? So, what was he trying to accomplish? He takes a woman from Midian, Kozbi Bas Tzur, and he makes a public ceremony of marrying her, has relations with her. Well, I don't know what he did. Did he convert her? I don't know. Didn't seem like it. But he certainly had relations with her, and in steps Pinchas to kill him. What was he trying to accomplish? Chazal said, the people of his tribe said, they're coming after us. These 88,000 or 87,000 judges are coming to kill us and hang us up by the highest tree. Well, it's not the highest tree, actually. It's just a piece of wood, actually. What's that? No, that's chenek. But that wasn't the judgment here. Here it says that they were going to judge them, but what miso they were going to get, they were going to be hung, which means that they're in the category of skila. Now, whether they were actually going to be stoned or not is another question. But it seems like the Bnei Shimon said, we're all about to die, and you are our prince, and what are you doing to protect us? So he comes up with this great idea. I'm going to take Cosby and do this sin. How's that going to help? What was the reason why these 176,000 people were supposed to be killed? What did they do wrong? They bowed to Avodah Zarah, right?
They were going to convert these women and make them, no?
Maybe, yeah.
And then he was showing that perhaps.
Oh, okay. So then, yeah, but still, their crime was that they did Avodah Zarah. And now he's with this woman, and he says, hey, Moshe, am I allowed to do this? And if I'm not, how come you married Zipporah? How does that answer the problem? It's a very simple question, but it's a profound question. Like, what was his logic here? Some people want to say it was just a diversion. Like when something's going on, they just wanted to throw a monkey wrench into the work. You throw something at it. But maybe it was deeper, as you're suggesting. So let's see if we can put all this together in a coherent way. See, once again, when you scratch below the surface of all these midrashim, and you think about it, it's like, what is the message? What is Chazal trying to tell us? So it seems like this. it's clear that the din of the 176,000 never happened. Because Bilam would have gotten paid for it. And he didn't. Why didn't they die? Someone stopped the judgment. What stopped it? Pinchas stopped it. So who actually is the hero in the story? If you want to think about it, who's the big hero? Pinchas? Or who else is a hero that stopped the death of a mass amount of Jews? Zimri is a hero.
Yeah,
Because of him, he's Ki'ilu sacrificed his own life to save 176,000 Jews. Now, you can't help the Magefa, but he even stopped the Magefa from going further. So in addition to the 176,000, we don't know how, maybe the Magefa would have spread to all of Klal Yisrael, because Hashem says he was mad at Yisroel. Vayoshav charon af Adonai mi Yisroel. They would have all been gone. So let me say, he didn't save only 176,000 Jews. He may have saved close to 600,000 Jews minus 24,000. Who's the hero? Who's the villain? It's never who it seems. It never is who it seems. Chazal are not so, how shall I say, black and white. Things are far more nuanced. The death of Zimri at the hands of Pinchas saved Klal Yisrael.
How is Zimri a hero?
Because if he doesn't do what he does, what happens to Jewish people?
Yeah, but doing his motivation was for the good?
Yes. According to Rav Moshe Wolfson, my mashkiach, in his Sefer Emunas Itecha, and other Hasidic Svarim who tend to go in this direction, they always question whether the villain is a villain. That's one of the big, big themes in Hasidic Svarim. Question the assumptions. Think out of the box. He says his kavanah was, all right, we're having problems here. We're not getting out of the midbar. Ba midbar. Ba midbar means, Sefer B'midbar is we're stuck. We're stuck here in the desert and we're not finding a way out to Eretz Yisrael. That's why always before Tisha B'Av, what do? We start the book of Devarim, which is already the going into Eretz Yisrael. We never allow the Jews to end up in the desert on Tisha B'Av, because that's like the end. We need to always link the destruction with the Churban and the Galus with the Geula. Never ever will you find Klal Yisrael only speaking about Churban. Never ever will you ever find the message of Chazal is that Churban is final, but rather a temporary separation. In fact, what do we sing at the end of Eicha? Hashivenu Hashem Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Yameinu Kikedem. Always there's a renewal. Any failure is about renewal, coming back even stronger. So, yeah. So if we think about it, Klal Yisrael deserved, unfortunately, on many reasons, for 10 particular Averos, as it says in Pirkei Avos, they challenged Hashem, and not the least of which was post the Meraglim. Even post the Meraglim, we still have these problems. Even post Sichon V'Og, where they start conquering Eretz Yisrael, we still have these problems with Balak and Zimri, etc. But they saved the day. Pinchas saved. So the truth is that all Bilam was able to accomplish was the 24,000, which he came to get reward for, because nothing else happened.
And why 24,000?
Okay, that's my next point. Thank you. Thank you. You're listening. Says the Ari HaKadosh, a shocking thing, where Wilson also brings this in his Sefer. Shocking. He says, to prove that Zimri and Cosby weren't all bad, that they wanted to save the Jewish people, that's not a bad thing to want to save the Jewish people. And Hashem is very funny that way. You can go against Hashem, like Zimri did, but if your intention is to save the Jewish people, he's not so angry. Not that he's not angry, but he kind of likes that part of it. So much so that Zimri comes back in a Gilgal as Rabbi Akiva. And he marries the wife of Turnus Rufus, the wicked Roman general who completely plowed Yerushalayim under with what? Salt, which meant nothing could grow there. It's the Churban times infinity. The end was Turnus Rufus. Or was it the end? Because it's never the end. And his very wife marries Rabbi Akiva. What happened? The Chazal tells us, Rabbi Akiva was an enemy of the state because he was the reason why Jews were staying strong and believing in Hashem and keeping Torah mitzvos despite all the Romans' efforts to tear them away from Torah and mitzvos. Just the presence of Rabbi Akiva kept Yiddishkeit alive. And they wanted him out. So they sent Turnus Rufus' wife, who apparently was like, a world-class beauty, to induce him to sin, much like the Eitzah of who? Bilam. And also very similar to Cosby because she was the head of the, of the emperor, the emperor's, not the head general's wife, whatever she was. But she certainly was a dignitary's wife. Go but Rabbi Akiva sees her coming and says to her, he starts crying. Now usually Rabbi Akiva doesn't cry. What does Rabbi Akiva usually do? Laugh. We know Rabbi Akiva to be more on the side of laughter. When he saw the Churban Beis HaMikdash, he laughed because he said, aha, I see good coming. The Churban is over. We got to the Churban stage, which means Choser Chalila, we're going back around to the stage of Geula. And he cries, however, when he sees her, because this was really going the wrong direction. He says, if I sin, then we're going in the wrong direction. And he cries. And he says, how could it be that such a beautiful woman should be so debased and so, so foolishly abused? And she was like shocked. And what does she do? She becomes a Gioret Tzedek. So Rabbi Akiva, who she tried to induce to sin, now becomes her Rebbe, and they marry.
This is after Rabbi?
Obviously after his wife passed away. Remember, Rabbi Akiva lived to be 120, so he was around 100 and, 15 at the time, whatever it was. And she had passed away. But
What was her name?
we don't know. Oh, there is a name for her. There is a name. I'm sorry. There's a name. I'm just not recalling it right now. Eshes Turnus Rufus. She's known as the wife of Turnus Rufus. Now, that being said, what happens to Rabbi Akiva? He loses how many students? Exactly the same amount that perish in the plague of Zimri. Okay. Now, how do you understand that? How do you understand that? You have to say, what Chazal teach, what the Ariya Kaddish is teaching us, is that this was a step forward. In other words, Zimri and Cosby accomplished something. They accomplished to limit the damage to the Bnei Yisrael to the 24,000. They needed Pinchas' help, of course, but it stopped there. Rabbi Akiva also stopped a damage that might have been even further. Because Rabbi Akiva does manage, after those 24,000 students are destroyed, right? It was again like a kapara for the tzibur. Hashem accepted that and accepted somehow the maisa of Rabbi Akiva without Pinchas. You understand? That was the advantage, perhaps. We didn't need a Pinchas to kill them because they were now seen as positive. The previous act had still negativity attached to it. You needed a Pinchas together with Cosby and Zimri to make it happen. Here, just the two of them were able to make it happen. The Kavanah had matured somewhat, if you want to put it that way. But still we lost the 24,000 as a kapar for Klal Yisrael. But then what happens? Not all is lost, because Rabbi Akiva manages to gather 5 new students and start again. And who knows if this act might have been a prelude to that. In other words, this story with Eshes Turnus Rufus logically must have taken place around the time where he takes those 5 students, the main Tanoim, including Shimon Bar Yochai, right, Rabbi Shimon, and starts all over again. Yeah. Oh, very good. Yeah, that is, by the way, an excellent point. And it's not. By the way, Wilson speaks about that. Yes, I believe you're correct. Wow. Do you want to give the shiur next week?
What did she say?
Tell what you said.
Another Shimon.
Another Shimon. A new Shimon is born. A Shimon who will finish the process of bringing Klal Yisrael back, because there's a Shimon Bar Yochai through his Zohar that redeems the lost souls of the Jewish people and says, Torah lo tishtachach mi Yisrael. He says, I guarantee it. Now, at this point, I'm going to take a little aside and tell you about something that happened this Shabbos on theme. But should we just pull this together for a second so you have it? What was our question? Our question was, it seems like there's a war against Midian, not against Moab. In that war, I will add, the women were spared, and Moshe was angry. The women were spared, even the ones that had done the sin. Pinchas let those women live. You know why? No, let the Midianite women live initially. Afterwards, Moshe said you have to get rid of them. But he said, what are they doing wrong? The Aviram is over. A kanai poking bow is only when there's something going on. It's over already. It's ancient history. I can't kill them anymore. What right do I have to kill them? Moshe says, no. This is the kapara, because they induced Klal Yisrael to sin, and we have to clean that out. They were objects of Aviram. And even if they didn't participate actively, as I'll tell us, if they were eligible for the Aviram, but nothing actually happened to them, they still died. Because they were part of that intention of the Midyanim to have them sin. Any woman who could was sent to induce Klal Yisrael to sin. So any woman who was eligible to create that sin was done away with, whether she did or didn't. And that was something that Pinchas would have never done on his own. Because what right? The army of Hashem, all the matos, 1,000 per mata, all of Klal Yisrael, because it was a nekama of Hashem for Klal Yisrael against Midian, for time to destroy the kedusha of Am Yisrael.
Moshe said that they should be killed?
Moshe said. He was even angry with them that they didn't understand on their own to do it, but they didn't. And we said that the big destruction of the 176,000 plus never took place, apparently. Only the 24,000. So who's the hero? Pinchas? Not only Pinchas. Because without Zimri's carbon, literally offering himself as a carbon to say, I'm going to save the Jewish people, there is no end to the destruction. So in a sense, he had a good intent. And that's mirrored by the Ari HaKadosh, who says that he comes back as Rabbi Akiva and the wife of Tunis Rufus, because they did have an attempt to save and champion Klal Yisrael. And they're not needing a Pinchas anymore the second time around. But we still lose the 24,000 because of the Averos of Klal Yisrael. But we see the fact that there's now a Mishnah, something came through. The 5 students of Rabbi Akiva, including Rabbi Shimon. And that was your point. Shimon is redeemed. Shimon has to be redeemed. And there's 2 tribes that help Shimon get redeemed. We mentioned last week, the Bnei Yissaschar says that the month of Tammuz and the month of Av correspond to Ruvain and Shimon. Because in the desert already, problems happened in those months. And Tammuz and Av was the episode of the Meraglim, way back in Moshe Rabbeinu's time. These months are potentially great, but they need redemption. Where they start off really, really in the hole, right? And he says, Reuven was the sin of Datan and Aviram. And Shimon was the problem with Zimri. Okay, so these months are replete with challenges, all right? But there is redemption that comes along. Levi is part of the solution. Pinchas, not really Levi, but the Kohanim are the solution. The Kohanim help redeem Shimon by Pinchas, who's the Kohen Mashuach Milchama, who leads Klal Yisrael to war and makes sure that they do ethical war, Al Pi Hashem, and ask Shilas, because he wore the Urim V'Tumim. And everything that was done in that war against Midian from this week was utmost kosher. This is the origin of Glad Kosher, this week's Parsha. Did you know that? All the laws of kashrus are learned from this week's parsha. They had to kasher the pots and pans that they got, the ones that needed to be, like Pesach, that needed, a torch, went for the torch. Those that needed boiling water. Those that needed to just be cold water rinse. All the halachos are learned, kashrus.
In this week's parsha?
Yeah, from the war against Midian. And they had to give a monetary, kashrus in money. They had to give an accounting to the penny, lahavdil, of everything that they had, and it was divided equally with. That's why this is such a long parsha, because there's a tremendously detailed accounting. This is like CPA work, this week's parsha. This is you're reading an accounting report. There were this many animals, and these many slave girls, and these many this, and everybody got a portion, and they added up again and again and again. Machzuch Meshuga. Just give me a footnote in a medrash that they divided it equally. It's good enough. No. Kashrus. There is something in Midian that can be made kosher, but only if we do it with the guidance of the Kohen and Moshe Rabbeinu, the Torah. Then it's going to work, not just Stam.
Not if it was used for
Even if it was used, if it was used for the Torah, they had to destroy it, right? But the other stuff was redeemable. There was things that were redeemable, like the girls who were too young to have participated in the crime. They couldn't have had relations; they were too young. But they are now kosher. They can be koshered into slaves, and they'll grow up and then maybe even be a giores and marry a Jew. Isn't that amazing? The same girls from Midian. What's going on over here? Because there is a way, but it's a carefully, and that's why the Torah goes into great detail and say kashrus is kashrus is kashrus. You have to know what's kosher and what's not kosher. So on this note, I will say, this past Shabbos, I happened to be in Yerushalayim for a family gathering from people came from Putzlarts. We got together with them for Shabbos. It was very nice. And there was a big mission of students from America, not led by Orthodox. Okay, one of these big tours that come in. I'm not even going to mention the name. So they were having their Shabbaton, and their speaker spoke to them, and I had gone into the room just to get a chair, really just to pick up a chair, because I wanted to sit. And the guy said something, oh, you're welcome, have a chair. And I just said, let me just say something here. Got myself into trouble. So I start saying to them, I said, how gratifying it is that they came to Israel, how overjoyed I am to see that they wanted to come to Israel, and how they have a deep soul connection, whether they know it or not, here, and that how great they are, etc., etc., etc. All Jews are here to help the world. There are not that many of us. There are about 14 million. And we got about 7 billion people to teach them righteousness and justice and truth, and to question assumptions, and to be like Aviram and not just go with the flow. I said, we are an Am Kadosh. We are a holy people. What does Kadosh mean? Not going with the flow. To be able to say, I'm mavdil myself from this.
I bet he was sorry he asked you.
Oh, he was. 1 second. So, and I said to them, my blessing to you, and I spoke to him about Einstein. I said, Einstein, who was a Jew who believed in a simple thing, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. He didn't believe in everything, but he did believe that God created the world, to start. And he looked for the complete unity and simplicity of God, underpinning all the confusion of the world of theoretical physics, and he found simple equations. What was his formula called? The unified theory of matter. Unified. Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. I said, this is what Jews are a gift to the world. And I said, do you feel ready to do that? I said, well, one of the things you're going to need to be able to have that kind of impact is to marry in the tribe. To marry in the tribe. And I said, and if you're not in the tribe, because I imagined a lot of them weren't, come in the tribe, because we need you. And I thought I did such a great job, and a girl with a tattoo wanted to give me a whole hug, everything. I lightly declined. Tattoo and a nose ring, the whole thing. And I'll tell you what it's like to have my 2 little yeshiva boys for Shabbos in a hotel with all these young people. Okay? It wasn't Ramat Beit Shemesh. They wouldn't have lasted in bed for 5 seconds, is all I can tell you. But
I wish I had heard that.
yeah. So afterwards, we were sitting at the Shabbos meal. Our group was at the side, and they had this whole section. And I thought I did such a good job. And I went over to the leader. I said, "Thanks for letting me say a few words." He goes, "Do you know how much damage you did? Don't you know that you can't talk about intermarriage anymore?
Really? Yeah, I read it.
All these kids are either children of intermarriage, or they're going to intermarry, or they have non-Jewish boyfriends. We just have to say," and it's such a beautiful thing. They take their non-Jewish and they just do Jewish with them. They do Jewish things, and that's where we're at today. This is the truth. Now, okay, I'm not 25 years old, so I don't know that this is what's du jour. Back when I was entering the rabbinate, intermarriage was still not considered a sacred cow, but apparently now it is. And they moved the goalposts. Well, that was already in the 70s, I think. Well, in the 70s, I believe, right?
Yes.
But they started moving the goalposts then, and they've never stopped moving it. So now the reality is that being Jewish is whoever says they're Jewish. It's your decision in your mind, much like your gender, much like your truth. Everything is relative to your own personal imagination. It's a virtual world, so you can be virtually Jewish. And then I was like, whoa. A guy, I didn't know he was so angry at me. I brought my wife over and said, "Yeah, let's talk to this guy. I had such a great experience." And he goes, "You don't know how much damage you did." Yeah, but then we made, I said, well, I guess I'm old school. And of course you can respect that this is my truth, because that always works, you can never, okay, your truth, my truth, your truth.
Be tolerant.
So, then I was kind of thinking about it, and then I go up to our room after lunch, and I was on the 14th floor, and I had to climb up and down the 14th floor many times because we kept forgetting our Shabbos key, so I was up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down.
Why they put you up so high?
Whatever, but we had a beautiful room, and I always buy my wife Mishpacha magazine, so there's an article there from Moshe Grilak, who's the editor, writing a letter to Buzzi Herzog. Now, Buzzi Herzog, Yitzhak Herzog, was just named the head of Jewish Agency, which is essentially the ambassador at large to American Jews. You want to put it that way. That's what it really is, to get the money. And chief fundraiser to American Jewry. And he got up, before he was, selected, and he said, intermarriage is a plague, and blah, blah, blah. Boy, did he get it over the head. And I said, you know what, I don't feel bad, I guess me and Bougie, we're just, we still in the old age. And the reality is that he wrote very beautifully, he said his grandfather, Rabbi Yitzhak Herzog, is known to have saved at least 700 children from monasteries. And he would go in and he would scream, Shema Yisrael, and if anybody, Hashem Elokeinu, if anybody screamed back Hashem Echad, he says, that's my kid, and go out. And he went, he pleaded in front of the Pope, I can say, and he said, nothing I can do, I can't help you, because once they're, yeah. But he did save 700 children from monasteries. And the Pope John Paul II, who wasn't all bad, was one who sent Jewish children back to the parents, if it wasn't their will that they be Christian. And for that, I think he should be acknowledged. In any case, this was our experience. And so in a sense, when you think about Zimri and Cosby and their attempt to bring people into the tribes, maybe that's why Moshe Rabbeinu sent Dafka 1,000 people from each tribe, right? Like the Sarei Alafim, that elite group from each tribe to say, no, Israel has 12 tribes, and Midian isn't one of our tribes, and Moab isn't one of our tribes. But there are individuals within Moab and Midian who will come back to us. In Moab, like Rus. So the message is, yes, come join the tribe, but on our terms and not on your terms. And that was my thought. But in any case, so let's just understand one more thing. After this whole episode is over, Hashem counts the Jewish people. Okay? And by the way, we mentioned about Nidarim. Nidarim are always when you want to take upon yourself even more Kedusha, and when you're going into war, to make sure that the war will not ruin you, but will accomplish Hashem's goals. Which is why the Kohen Meshuach Melchama, i.e. Pinchas, is sent out also, because he's got to be the mashkiach, kashrus, in the war. Answer any questions that come up. What's kadosh and what's not kadosh? So Nidarim, in a time of warfare, their job is mostly to say, whatever we capture is going to be chayrim to Hashem, and we're taking it on as a vow. Nobody's going to fool around. We're going to make sure that everything is done kedas ukedin. So a neder is always the Jewish prelude to a war. You find many references to that in Tanakh, but I won't go into that now. Yeah, you take on a neder and say, if Hashem will help me, then I will bring this and this as a cherem to Hashem, as a commission.
But that works against him also later on.
Yes, it could be. It could also, if it's not done properly, a boomerang.
So he said something stupid about his.
Right, exactly.
The soldiers.
Yifta. Well, I think that each individual was and collectively took on, because we see that they had to distribute the spoils of war in a very definitive way. Okay, but I think that more importantly, whether they made that neder actually before they went to the war, the fact that Parshas Nedarim is shown right before the war means that it's a preparation for war. It's not random. Nobody knows what's it doing here. It is here because it is the prelude to kosher war. Kosher warfare requires ramping up your holiness and your awareness before you go into a situation that could drag you down. You're entering a not such a kosher place. You don't want to get schlepped downward. You want to hold your place. And that's what a neder is for. Like a nazirus. It's the same idea. You're holding your kedusha against slipping. And it's not for everybody, and it's not even a mitzvah that is without problem, because you have to bring a carbon chatas after nazirus. You did a sin. You didn't engage life, you didn't drink, you weren't part of society, blah, blah, blah. You didn't. But still, it's necessary, it's as needed. As needed. So, but in the count, and this I want to sort of wrap things up today, in the census, in the new sentence, a few people are singled out, and I want you to note who. Like if you're counting the Jewish people as families, why do you need to mention individuals? It would seem to be irrelevant. Who cares? We just want the number. Even the families doesn't seem to be important. Or is it? Families are important because they're the ones that hold in the kashrus. A strong family, right, will watch the other members of the family. They're an additional safety valve to say, I care about this person. I want to make sure that they're going in the right derech. If I can do anything about it, I'm going to do something about it. But there are a few individuals. Okay, here we go. It's all in your parsha, okay, in this last week's parsha, Pinchas. It says, okay, we're going to count the Jewish people. So we start with Reuven, and we mention the families of Reuven. And then, Eilu Mishpachas HaReuveni, right? And then we get to Bnei Palu Eliav. And Eliav was had 3 kids. Nimuel, nondescript. Vidasan v'Aviram. Okay, now, why count individuals at all? We're talking about families. Then the pasuk goes on to say, Hu dasan v'Aviram kirue eda. Kirue eda. That means that they were distinguished leaders. Not stam. They're the chosen leaders. Asher hitzu al Moshe. Rashi explains it means that they led a rebellion against Moshe. V'al Aaron. Be'adas Korach. B'hatzosem al Adonai. And they basically had taken on Moshe, Aaron, and Hashem kaviyachol. That was what happens to them. V'tiftach ha'aretz es piha. The land opens up and swallows who? No, Datan and Aviram. Vativla osam v'es Korach. Like Korach's a throw-in. Korach is innocent, you know. Korach got sucked in by Datan and Aviram. They're the criminals. Korach is Nebuch. And then what do we go on to say? U'bnei Korach lo meisu.
Yeah.
Oh, Korach's not such a bad guy, but Datan and Aviram, they got swallowed up. Oh, that just skews everything that we know. It's always called Korach va'adaso. It's not Datan of Aviram va'adaso, it's Korach va'adaso. What's going on over here, and why is this part of the census? So I believe that the people mentioned in the census, we'll see who else was mentioned in a moment, were the preparatory tweaks to the Klal Yisrael family that needed to happen before what? Before we get out of the Midbar. These are the reasons why we're stuck in the Midbar. There are a couple of people, right, that created problems and certain adjustments that needed to be made so we could get out of here. One big adjustment was Datan and Aviram being swallowed into the ground. Why? So the Bible points out, he says, boy, they've given a lot of honor here. First of all, they're singled out. Second of all, by the way, in Shimon, nothing's mentioned. Nothing. I guess we dealt with it enough, right? But we go back, we mention Datan and Aviram. What does that have to do with anything? They were the leaders of the Jewish people. They were not stam. You know, we grew up to think that these were these two like low-life criminals. You know, with the guys with the black thing on their eyes and the striped shirts. You know, we're gonna get Moshe. No. They were the leaders of the Jewish people. And they had a point. Moshe Rabbeinu was coming and dramatically changing the status quo. He was ruining their relationship with Paro. He said, Moshe, what are you doing here? We, apparently Datan and Aviram, were the personal advisors of Paro. And I mentioned last week that in Morocco, I told you about this last week, there's an official advisor named Andre Azoulay. He's a brilliant banker from Paris, a Moroccan banker from Paris, and he tells the kings who are rich how to get richer and how to make wealth, you know, like a Yosef kind of person. And his daughter, Audrey Azoulay, remarkably, was just put as head of UNESCO, a Jewish Moroccan girl. UNESCO, the big fakery, and she's trying to turn it around. And in the past year, they haven't done anything outrageous against Israel, and they've walked back, as I said last time, some of their crazy statements saying, you know, like, Maris Machpelah has nothing to do with the Jewish people. Gee, that's only the Kinyan that Aviram made in Eretz Yisrael. Oh, it has nothing to do with Jewish people. And she's walking it back. Not stam. These are not small things. Look at the connection between those two people. They were powerful advisors. They were way, way up there. And that was Datan and Aviram, way up there. When the Jews decide this experiment in the Midbar is just not working out, Nitna Rosh, Moshe couldn't deliver the goods. So what does Datan and Aviram say? You didn't bring us to Eretz Zavat Chalav. If you would have taken us to Eretz Zavat Chalav Dvash, okay, but you took us here to Midbar to slaughter us. Who are they defending? The Jewish people. They said, you're causing suffering to the Jewish people. Moshe and Aaron and Kivyochel Hashem. You are doing an injustice to the Jewish people. You know what? An amazing thing, based on Rabbi Revi's insight. He says, a leader who cares about the suffering of the Jewish people, whether or not he's defying Hashem's very will, is still given honor as a true Jewish leader. That is an unbelievable thing.
Zimri.
Similarly with Zimri. True leaders, Kruei Eva. So a word in defense of Datan and Aviram. Now when I get up there, they're going to give me a high five. Hopefully they're up there. I don't know if they're up there. Hopefully I'll get up there.
It's still down.
They'll say, you know what, thanks for saying a kind word about us. Don't everybody know that our intention, we were fierce defenders of the welfare of the Jewish people. And this guy, Moshe, created such sorrows for us. Leave us alone. Let us continue our benevolent arrangement with Paro. And you know, there's a problem. We take care of it quietly. We know how to take care of it, you know. We pay Paro off. We talk to him a little bit. We give him an eitzah here and there, and we solve the problems. Moshe, what are you doing? You've given a sword into Paro's hand to destroy us. Stop it. And when things don't work in the Midbar, Korach had absolutely not enough credibility to create a rebellion against Moshe and Aaron without whose help? Now you understand what happened here? Who are the credible leaders of Klal Yisrael? The known leaders, Datan and Aviram. Who's Korach? He's a nice tzaddik, rich guy. He had a lot of money. He found one of the treasures of Yosef HaTzadik in Mitzrayim. So he was a rich guy. Without Datan and Aviram as a cover, Korach goes nowhere. Hence, they had to be gotten rid of. All right? So, and just to conclude, a few other people are mentioned. Nadav and Avihu, which was again a distortion of the Kahuna. They're mentioned personally. Aaron, Moshe, and Miriam are mentioned personally. Okay, that makes sense. Levi is counted, not directly with the count, but very close proximity. They're included in the count, but not included in the Yerusha. They're in the count, but they're not in the Yerusha. But they're there because we're structuring the future. Okay? Levi as a tribe. Levi as a tribe, not just as peripheral people, but embedded in the land of Israel. They have a quasi-din of a shevet. They don't get land, but a shevet they are. Okay? So, all these things change. And then, of course, 5 special individual ladies are singled out. Both as part of the count, and then later they get their own parsha in the Torah. And what are their names? I'm going to give you the names based on how they're written, okay? It goes Machla. Let's get them in order. Machla with a chet. Noah. Right? Chagla. Milka. And Tirza. I think Tirza is still a popular name. Malka is certainly a popular name. Noah is a popular name. Machlas and Chaglas never got much off the ground, but okay. What do they mean? What do they mean? Why are they singled out? Why do we need their names? Why do we need their names? Just say B'nos Lavcha. Many times, not more than twice. More than twice in the Torah. What's that?
You said you give them cover maybe?
A lot of kavod. But why? Maybe there's something in their names also. So here's what I'd like to suggest. Here's my rabbinic drash. Sorry. I apologize in advance. Machla is from the word machol, which means a circle. It's also from the word mechila, which means to forgive. These are the 5 prototypical righteous women who lead us out of the Midbar into Eretz Yisrael. Of course, Yeshua and Kalev are also mentioned specifically in this count. So we got to get rid of the old leadership and bring in the new leadership. Datan and Aviram were Mitzrayimites. They never got out of the Midbar. Nadav and Avihu died in the Midbar, right? Korach, Nebuch, but his banim were okay. We had to leave in the Midbar what was causing us to stay in the Midbar. Even Rahman al-Islan, Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam were not able to make that transition, not for their failures as much as their greatness, but for whatever reason.
They demonstrated their great love for Eretz Yisrael, these B'nos.
That's right.
As
So,
opposed to the others.
correct. So I want to say that they represent 5 necessary qualities to successfully enter Eretz Yisrael, something I'm still trying to figure out after 6 years. They say the 7th year gets better. We're hoping. Okay, Baruch Hashem. It says, Machla, Mechila. You got to be able to let go of the old. A circle means always a brand new beginning. There is no past. There is no present. There's only what's going on now and the future. So that's one big ingredient. You have to be ready to wipe the slate clean and start fresh. When you come to Eretz Yisrael, got to be willing to let go of old baggage, leave it behind, start fresh. What?
Keep evolving.
You have to. It's a fresh start. Eretz Yisrael will demand that you recreate or reinvent yourself, because whether you like it or not. Your person from Chutz La'aretz is going to be checked at the door.
You're rejuvenated.
With Jew with a J-E-W. Noah. You have to be flexible.
How do you spell Noah?
Nun, Vav, Ayin, Hey. Noah means Nav and Nod. You move. You got to be flexible. You think you're going to be here, you might end up there. Something doesn't go right the first way, you bump up against this, you bump up against that. You have to be flexible. That's number 2. And you have to be pleasant. And you have to be pleasant among the unpleasant trees. Okay? That's all. Keep it sweet. Chagla means you have to have a chag, you have to have a simcha shel mitzvah. You have to find joy in doing the mitzvahs in Eretz Yisrael. It has to be happy for you. You have to find chagim, chogeg, chugim, which also means people to celebrate with. So you need chevra, and you need chugim. You need a connection. You cannot do it alone. Milka is I'm going too fast. Milka, you got to remember that this is Hashem's palace. Who's the king? Not you. We are in the domain of Hashem. Hashem is in charge. There's a hashgacha pratis and an enayim that we have to just be aware of. We are under special observation of the king at all times. So make sure your behavior is royal. Just had the visit of the Havdil, the royalty of England, right? Interesting visit, by the way. You know who he brought with him? Chief Rabbi of England was invited by him. Not a simple thing. And the guy went to the kotel and put a yarmulke on. England to do that? Ernest Bevin would be rolling over in his grave. You know, that was the one who refused the Jews should come in after the Holocaust. And the people were so outraged around the world that they had to just leave. They put so much pressure on him.
He didn't have an official visit with Netanyahu.
He didn't meet with Netanyahu?
He didn't have it. He wasn't. And then
Jerusalem.
they wanted it.
No, he met with Rivlin.
Yeah.
No, you know, meeting the prime minister is not part of that necessarily. Anyway, I'm just saying it's a change. It's a positive development. I think it's more positive than negative anyway. And Tirza is Ratzon, but more importantly, it's Ritzeh, which is Tefillah. Ritzeh Hashem Elokeinu, what? With Tefillah Sam, in the Tefillos of Bnei Yisrael. You gotta daven. Whatever it is, you gotta daven. So, the 5 nekudos that they teach us about entry into Eretz Yisrael. Machla, just be willing to start fresh. And be mochel, people, for whatever is in the past, let it go. Noah, be flexible and keep smiling. Ten chiyuch, like Rabbi Ari says, give a smile. Chagla means find chevra and celebrate your life here. Milka means remember that you're in the domain of the king. And Tirza is keep davening and keep wanting things to get better and better. So, again, progress, not perfection. And as we get out of the midbar, we realize as we get into the period, deep into the period of the 3 weeks, we say, okay, we always look at failures as an opportunity to begin again. And never is Klal Yisrael allowed to remain in the midbar forever. Okay, so hopefully we have one more Shiur next Monday, and then I'll be away for a couple weeks with the family. But that is the message, and never think that those who were Moser Nefesh on behalf of the Jewish people, even characters like Zimri and Datan and Aviram, cannot in some way find good in them and the potential eventually, like Rabbi Akiva and Turnus with his wife, for making a positive contribution to the saving of Klal Yisrael.